The crystalline spires of Station Crystal Harmony caught the light of the azure sun, sending rainbow fractals dancing through its transparent corridors. Senior observer Lyra stood at her post in the central observation dome, her silvery eyes reflecting the cosmic ballet of stellar debris and spacecraft that made up their bustling trade route. The Aetherian's translucent skin shimmered as she moved between the holographic displays, monitoring the steady flow of merchant vessels that were the lifeblood of their outer colony. Senior observer, we're detecting an anomaly at the edge of our scanning range, reported Junior Observer Thillen, his voice carrying the musical lilt characteristic of their species. His fingers danced over the crystal control interface, bringing up a magnified view of the disturbance. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. The vessel that emerged from the darkness between the stars bore no resemblance to the merchant ships they typically welcomed. Its hull was angular and dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, with weapon ports clearly visible along its flanks. The design was unmistakable. A Krathak warship. "Signal the Council," Lyra commanded, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "And begin emergency evacuation procedures for the civilian sectors." The Krathak Empire's reputation preceded them across the galaxy. They were conquerors, believers in strength above all else, who saw peaceful civilizations as nothing more than resources to be harvested. The station's crystal walls hummed as the alert system activated, bathing the corridors in a soft amber glow. Through the dome's transparent panels, Lyra watched as civilian ships began their practiced emergency launches, carrying precious cargo of artwork, philosophical texts, and most importantly, their children to designated sanctuary points. Senior observer. Thillen's voice cracked with urgency. "They're charging weapons systems." The first shot from the Krathak vessel streaked across space like an angry red star, impacting the station's outer shields. The protective barrier shimmered, holding, but the entire station shuddered from the impact. Their defensive systems, designed mainly to deflect stellar debris and radiation, would not withstand sustained assault from military-grade weapons. Council chamber reports they are convening an emergency session, another observer reported. "They're requesting your presence," Senior observer. Lyra took one last look at the menacing shape of the Krathak warship. Their civilization had spent millennia developing arts, philosophy, and peaceful technologies. They had created architecture that sang with the solar winds and composed symphonies that captured the harmony of the spheres. But they had never developed weapons of war, never seen the need for them in their pursuit of knowledge and beauty. The station shook again as another blast struck their shields. Through the emergency channels, reports began flowing in of similar attacks on other Aetherian colonies. This wasn't a random raid. It was a coordinated invasion. As Lyra hurried toward the council chamber, she passed groups of her people moving with purposeful calm through the crystal corridors. Artists carefully packed away generations of irreplaceable works. Scholars downloaded vast libraries of knowledge into portable crystals, and parents soothed frightened children with ancient songs of hope and courage. The Aetherian way had always been to face challenges with grace and wisdom. But as the station shuddered under another impact, Lyra feared that grace and wisdom alone might not be enough this time. Their civilization stood on the brink of extinction, facing an enemy that saw their greatest achievements as weaknesses to be exploited. What they needed now was a miracle. Or perhaps, Lyra thought as she recalled stories of the strange human traders who had visited their station, they needed something else entirely, something that would arrive with thunder and lightning, bringing a power that the Krathak Empire had never faced before. The Grand Chamber of Harmony lived up to its name even in crisis. Curved walls of living crystal pulsed with soft light, responding to the emotions of the gathered council members. Right now, they shimmered with waves of deep blue, the color of profound concern. Lyra entered through the sweeping archway, her steps quickened by another distant impact against the station's failing shields. "The Krathak vessel has begun targeting our civilian evacuation routes," First Speaker Mirindel announced, his aged features grave as he studied the holographic display at the chamber center. The projection showed their station, surrounded by angry red markers indicating enemy weapon locks. They're systematically cutting off all escape vectors. Our shields will fail within 30 minutes, second speaker Vela added, her crystalline head crest reflecting the chamber's anxious illumination. The auxiliary power systems cannot maintain them against this level of assault. Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear in the worried murmurs of the chamber. Honored speakers, 3 cycles ago, we received visitors who may have foreseen this moment. She watched recognition dawn in their eyes. The human traders. A ripple of discussion swept through the chamber. The humans had been an enigma. Their ships basic by Aetherian standards, their technology seemingly primitive. Yet there had been something about them, a quiet confidence that had puzzled the Council's finest observers. Before they departed, Lyra continued, they entrusted us with a device. They called it a beacon, to be used only in our darkest hour. She turned to first speaker Marindal. I believe that hour has come. The chamber fell silent as Marindal accessed a hidden compartment beneath his speaking podium. The device he withdrew was deceptively simple, a small cylinder of dull gray metal that seemed almost crude next to the elegant crystal technology surrounding it. The human captain's words echoed in their memories. When darkness comes, we will answer. Another impact rocked the station, stronger than before. Through the chamber's transparent dome, they could see sections of their outer shields beginning to fail, the protective barrier flickering like a candle in the wind. We have reports of 3 more Krathak vessels entering the system, Vela announced, her voice tight with concern. They will arrive within the hour. Marindal held the beacon carefully, studying its simple surface. The humans spoke of protection, of aid in times of need. Yet their vessels seemed barely capable of interstellar travel. What help could they possibly offer against such force? Perhaps, Lyra suggested, remembering the strange glint in the human captain's eyes. That was precisely what they wished us to believe. The decision crystallized as quickly as the art forms their people were famous for. Marindal pressed his palm against the beacon's surface, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then the device hummed to life, its dull surface beginning to pulse with an inner light that grew steadily brighter. A new signal appeared on their scanners, radiating outward from the beacon in waves that seemed to bend the very fabric of space. It passed through their shields, through the station's crystal walls, reaching out into the darkness between the stars. The Krathak vessel is responding, Vela reported, surprise evident in her tone. They're pulling back, breaking off their attack pattern. Through the dome, they watched as the massive warship suddenly altered course, its weapon ports powering down. The change was so abrupt that it took the council members a moment to realize what they were seeing. The Krathak, renowned for their aggressive expansion and military might, were retreating. They recognized the signal, Lyra whispered, understanding dawning in her eyes. They know what's coming. The beacon's pulse grew stronger, its light now bright enough to cast shadows in the crystal chamber. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, something was answering. Something that made one of the most powerful military forces in known space turn and run. The humans had promised to answer when darkness came. Now, the Aetherians would discover exactly what that promise meant. The space around Crystal Harmony erupted in a dance of light and shadow. At first, the Aetherian observers thought their instruments were malfunctioning as multiple spatial distortions appeared simultaneously around their station. Reality itself seemed to fold, creating windows of swirling energy that stretched the very fabric of space. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database, Junior Observer Thelen reported, his fingers flying across the crystal interface. The patterns suggest vessels emerging from some form of dimensional transit. Through these tiers in space came ships of impossible grace and power. Their hulls gleamed with a metal that seemed to drink in starlight, adorned with pulsing lines of blue energy that spoke of contained power beyond Aetherian understanding. Each vessel was easily twice the size of the retreating Krathak warship, their designs an perfect blend of elegance and military precision. 7 vessels detected, Vela announced in the council chamber, her voice filled with wonder. Configuration unknown, but their power readings. She paused, double-checking her readings. They exceed our measuring capabilities. The lead vessel moved with fluid grace, taking up a protective position directly between Crystal Harmony and the Krothak ship. Its hull bore markings that the Aetherians recognized from their previous encounters, but transformed. The simple trade emblems of humanity now interwoven with symbols of power and authority. Incoming transmission, Lyra reported, her fingers dancing across the crystal controls. Multiple channels, broadcasting in. She blinked in surprise. Perfect Aetherian. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the human vessel. Gone were the crude controls and basic interfaces they remembered from the trading ships. Instead, they saw a command center that put their most advanced technology to shame. Holographic displays floated in three-dimensional space, controlled by operators whose movements displayed years of practiced precision. Crystal Harmony Station. This is Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. The transmission began. The Admiral's voice carried authority, tempered with compassion. Your beacon was received. We stand ready to assist. Through the crystal dome, the Aetherians watched as more human ships emerged, each taking strategic positions around their station. Their movements spoke of countless drills and perfect coordination, a display of military efficiency that seemed almost artistic in its execution. The Krothak vessel is attempting to communicate with the human fleet, Phelan reported, his voice tight with anticipation. The fear that had gripped them earlier was transforming into something else. Hope mingled with awe. The human ships had deployed some form of energy field that extended between them, creating a protective web around the station. Lyra's instruments detected layers of defenses, gravitational distortion fields, particle barriers, and other systems that defied their understanding. This is impossible, one of the council members whispered, watching as the supposedly primitive trading species revealed their true technological mastery. They let us believe. We let you see what you needed to see. Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of gentle understanding. Humanity has learned through long experience that true power lies not in its display, but in its judicious application. The Krothak warship, now seeming small and vulnerable against the backdrop of human military might, had ceased all aggressive movements. Its weapon systems powered down, and its shields dropped in what could only be interpreted as a gesture of submission. To all Aetherian citizens, Admiral Chen continued, her voice now broadcasting throughout the station, please continue your evacuations calmly. The Human Defense Fleet will ensure your safe passage. To our Krothak guests, her tone shifted subtly, carrying steel beneath its professional courtesy. We suggest you prepare for diplomatic discussions. There are matters concerning the future of this region that require immediate attention. In the council chamber, Lyra watched as hope replaced fear in the eyes of her people. The humans had hidden their true nature behind a mask of simplicity, waiting and watching. Now, as that mask fell away, the Aetherians began to understand just what kind of allies they had made during those simple trading missions 3 cycles ago. The Grand Chamber of Harmony had never hosted such an unusual gathering. Admiral Chen stood at its center, her crisp uniform, a stark contrast to the flowing garments of the Aetherian Council. Behind her, a delegation of human officers maintained a respectful distance, their bearing professional yet relaxed, as if deploying an advanced battle fleet was a routine matter. 3 cycles ago, when our trading vessels first visited your station, Admiral Chen began, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber with points of light. We recognized in your people something precious, a civilization devoted to growth through art and understanding rather than conquest. The hologram shifted, showing hundreds of worlds, each marked with different symbols and classifications. The Aetherian Council members watched in amazement as patterns emerged, revealing a vast network of monitored and protected species. Humanity learned long ago that power brings responsibility. The Admiral continued, her hands guiding the display to focus on specific regions. We discovered faster-than-light travel centuries before most species in this sector. We could have conquered, dominated, or simply revealed ourselves as the superior force. Instead, we chose a different path. First Speaker Marindel stepped forward, his crystalline features reflecting the starlight from the hologram. "You became watchers," he said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Those simple trading vessels are our eyes and ears throughout the galaxy," a human officer completed the thought. "Equipped with sensors and observation equipment far more sophisticated than their exterior would suggest. We watch, we learn, and when necessary, we protect." The display shifted again, showing footage from what appeared to be previous interventions. Human ships appearing from nowhere to stop natural disasters, prevent conflicts, and silently shepherd developing civilizations away from catastrophe. The Krathak are not the first aggressive species we've encountered, Admiral Chen explained, bringing up new images. But they are among the most persistent. We've deflected their expansion 17 times in the past decade alone, each time making it appear as though natural phenomena or technical failures forced them to change course. Lyra, standing at her observation post, felt a profound shift in her understanding of the galaxy. "The trading mission that visited us," she said, drawing everyone's attention. They knew this attack was coming. Admiral Chen smiled, but there was a weight of responsibility in her expression. "We detected the Krathak's interest in your sector months ago. The beacon we left with you was both a promise of protection and a test. Your decision to use it rather than attempt military retaliation proved that our assessment of your civilization was correct." The holographic display zoomed out, revealing the true scope of human influence. Protected zones, monitored regions, and carefully managed conflict areas spread across thousands of light years. Each point of light represented a civilization being quietly guided toward peaceful development. "We maintain outposts throughout this sector," one of the human officers explained, highlighting several seemingly empty regions of space. "Our response time to any emergency is measured in minutes, not hours." The Krathak simply had the misfortune of choosing a particularly well-monitored target. Through the crystal dome above, they could see the human fleet maintaining their protective formation. Their ship's true capabilities were now obvious. The weapon systems, the gravimetric drives, the dimensional phase technology that had allowed their instant arrival. "Your people have nothing to fear from the Krathak," Admiral Chen assured the Council. "But we hope you understand that knowledge of our true capabilities must remain limited. There are many young civilizations out there who need to find their own path, free from the shadow of more advanced species." First Speaker Marindel bowed his head in understanding. "We are artists, Admiral. We understand the importance of letting each work develop according to its own nature." He gestured to the grand chamber around them. "Perhaps we can learn from each other. You have mastered the art of protection, while we have pursued the protection of art." The Admiral's smile widened. "That first speaker is exactly why we chose to reveal ourselves to your people. The galaxy needs its philosophers as much as its guardians." The warning came from the outer sensor arrays. 3 more Krathak warships had arrived, their massive forms cutting through the starlit void. Lyra watched from her observation post as they took up attack formations, their weapon ports glowing with barely contained energy. "Incoming transmission from the Krathak flagship," Phelan reported, his fingers steady despite the tension. The message that followed was brief and filled with the pride that had made their species infamous across the sector. "This system falls under Krathak authority. Your interference is unwelcome. Withdraw or be destroyed." Admiral Chen's response, broadcast on all frequencies, carried a calm that seemed almost inappropriate for the situation. "Krathak Command, we suggest you reconsider. The Aetherian system is under human protection. Your ships are outmatched." The Krathak answered with plasma fire. Brilliant beams of destructive energy lanced toward the human fleet, enough firepower to reduce a small moon to debris. What happened next left even the most seasoned Aetherian observers speechless. The human ships moved like dancers in a choreographed performance. Each vessel shifted position with microscopic precision, allowing the Kruthak weapons to pass harmlessly through the gaps in their formation. Not a single shot found its mark. Remarkable use of predictive algorithms, Vela commented from her station, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her fear. They're calculating the enemy firing solutions faster than the weapons can track. Admiral Chen's flagship, the Stellar Sentinel, took point position. Its hull began to shimmer with waves of blue energy that seemed to distort the very space around it. When the next Kruthak barrage arrived, the shots curved away as if pulled by invisible hands, creating a spiral of light that dissipated harmlessly into space. Gravitational defense fields, one of the human officers explained to the amazed council members. We bend space itself rather than rely on traditional shields. The Kruthak, facing an enemy that made their most powerful weapons useless, launched their fighter squadrons. Hundreds of small craft poured from the warships, their formations tight and aggressive. The human response was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. Small ports opened along the human vessels, releasing what looked like clouds of silver mist. The mist resolved into swarms of autonomous defense drones, each no larger than a human hand. They moved with collective intelligence, forming complex geometric patterns that shifted and flowed around the Kruthak fighters. Watch closely, Admiral Chen suggested, her voice carrying a hint of pride. This is what happens when you combine advanced technology with respect for life. The drone swarms engulfed the Kruthak fighters, not destroying them but disabling their systems with surgical precision. Fighters went dark, their pilots unharmed but helpless as their craft were gently pushed back toward their motherships by invisible forces. One of the Kruthak warships, perhaps sensing the futility of conventional tactics, attempted to power up its dimensional drive for an escape. The human fleet responded instantly, their ships moving in perfect synchronization to create a complex geometric pattern. Phase lock engaged, a human officer reported calmly. They're not going anywhere. The space between the ships lit up with a web of energy, creating a containment field that made faster-than-light travel impossible. The Kruthak vessel, trapped in normal space, found itself surrounded by human ships that seemed to flicker in and out of reality, appearing at impossible angles and distances. Final warning, Kruthak Command. Admiral Chen broadcast. Your strategic options are exhausted. Surrender now, and we guarantee safe passage for your crews to neutral space after diplomatic negotiations are complete. Through the crystal dome of the observation post, Lyra watched as the Kruthak ships powered down their weapons. The battle, if it could even be called that, had been more like a demonstration, a careful lesson delivered by a teacher to an overconfident student. They never stood a chance, Felin whispered, awe evident in his voice. All this time, humanity had this kind of power. And they chose to hide it, Lyra finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. Because true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to. The conference room aboard the Stellar Sentinel bore little resemblance to the utilitarian spaces the Aetherians had glimpsed in human trading vessels. Curved walls displayed real-time stellar data in shifting patterns of light, while a central holographic matrix created a perfect representation of the local sector floating above the polished conference table. Supreme Commander Vex of the Kruthak fleet sat rigid in his seat, his scaled armor bearing the marks of his many conquests. Across from him, Admiral Chen maintained a relaxed posture that somehow conveyed more authority than any military bearing could achieve. Representatives from the Aetherian Council completed the gathering, their crystalline features reflecting the stellar displays. Let me be clear, Admiral Chen began, gesturing at the holographic display. Your invasion fleet did not stumble into a random system. You crossed a very specific line. With a wave of her hand, the display expanded, revealing hundreds of worlds marked with distinct symbols. These are what we call protected gardens, civilizations under human supervision. The Kruthak commander's expression remained stoic, but his secondary breathing vents flared, a sign of agitation. The Kruthak Empire recognizes no authority but its own. We expand. We conquer. This is our way. Your way, a human lieutenant said softly, has been carefully managed for the past 50 years. The display shifted again, showing dozens of Krathak fleet movements. Each one appeared to end in technical failures, navigational errors, or mysterious phenomena that forced retreat. Supreme Commander Vex's scales darkened, a sign of dawning comprehension. The Cascade Nebula incident, the gravitational anomalies in the 7th sector, those were your doing. We prefer to guide rather than confront, Admiral Chen explained, her voice carrying no hint of boasting. Your empire has been allowed to expand within acceptable parameters, but this, she highlighted the Aetherian system. This crossed a line we could not ignore. The holographic display zoomed out further, revealing the true scope of human influence. Protected zones, monitored regions, and carefully managed territories spread across thousands of light years. The Krathak Empire, which had seemed so vast to its leaders, appeared as a small cluster of systems in a much larger tapestry. Impossible, Vex whispered, his military discipline cracking. Our intelligence networks are exactly as effective as we allow them to be, the human lieutenant completed. Your best stealth ships are detected and tracked the moment they leave your space. We know the location of every Krathak vessel, colony, and outpost in the sector. First Speaker Marindal of the Aetherian Council leaned forward, his crystalline features catching the light. If you possess such power, why allow any aggression? Why not simply stop all conflict? Admiral Chen's smile carried centuries of accumulated wisdom. Because growth requires challenge. Civilization must face obstacles to evolve. We don't prevent all conflicts. We manage them, guide them, ensure they don't destroy what must be preserved. The display shifted once more, showing the paths of countless species rising from primitive beginnings to advanced civilizations. Some paths were marked with conflicts, others with peaceful developments, but all showed careful, subtle guidance. Your empire, Admiral Chen addressed Vex directly, has served a purpose. Your conquests, managed and contained, have pushed other civilizations to innovate, to unite, to grow stronger. But that role does not extend to destroying artists, philosophers, and dreamers like the Aetherians. Supreme Commander Vex studied the display for a long moment, his tactical mind processing the new reality. The trading vessels, the ones we dismissed as unworthy of notice, are our eyes and ears throughout the galaxy, the lieutenant confirmed, collecting data, assessing threats, and ensuring the balance we've maintained for centuries. So now, Admiral Chen concluded, her tone firm but not unkind, we have a choice to make. The Krathak Empire can accept its place in the greater design, operating within the boundaries we've established, or she let the alternative hang unspoken in the air. In the silence that followed, the holographic stars continued their eternal dance, witnesses to a moment that would reshape the understanding of every species present. The age of hidden guardians was ending, and a new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. The observation deck of the Stellar Sentinel offered a panoramic view of the sector, with crystal harmony spires glittering against the backdrop of stars. Supreme Commander Vex stood at the viewport, his posture less rigid than before, watching as his fleet's weapons were systematically disabled by swarms of human maintenance drones. Your empire's path ends here, Admiral Chen said, joining him at the viewport. But that doesn't mean the Krathak story is over. It simply means you must write a different chapter. The holographic displays around them showed multiple feeds, Aetherian rescue operations proceeding smoothly, human ships establishing a defensive perimeter, and most significantly, the arrival of representatives from other protected species through precisely calculated dimensional portals. We've invited observers from several civilizations your empire has encountered, the Admiral continued. Some you tried to conquer, others you dismissed as beneath your notice. Each has a story to tell about human intervention. A delegation of ethereal beings from the Cascade Nebula drifted into the chamber, their translucent forms rippling with colors. When the Krethek fleet approached our nursery worlds, their speaker communicated telepathically. Mysterious solar flares forced them to change course. Solar flares we initiated, a human officer added quietly, precisely calculated to protect without revealing our presence. Representatives from the Silicon Collective joined them, their crystalline forms different from but reminiscent of the Aetherians. Our defense grid mysteriously upgraded itself before the Krethak invasion. We thought it was a gift from our ancestors. A gift from our deep cover engineering teams, the human lieutenant clarified. We've been updating your systems for decades, always making it appear natural or internal. Vex's secondary breathing vents flared rapidly as understanding dawned. The quantum gate malfunction that stranded our fleet. The mysterious play that forced us to abandon the mineral-rich moons of the 7th sector. All carefully orchestrated, Admiral Chen confirmed. We protect countless civilizations, each unique, each with something vital to contribute to the galaxy's future. The Aetherian artists, the Silicon Collective's architects, the Cascade Nebula's philosophers, even the Krethak's strength and determination, all have their place. First speaker Marindal, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. You speak of protection, Admiral, but I see something more. You're cultivating diversity. Precisely. The Admiral's smile carried approval. A galaxy of identical civilizations would be stable but stagnant. We need warriors and poets, builders and dreamers, even. She glanced at Vex, Conquerors, properly directed. The displays shifted to show new images. Primitive civilizations taking their first steps into space, advanced species developing technologies that approached human levels, and everything in between. Each was marked, monitored, and subtly guided. Your empire will be contained, Admiral Chen addressed Vex directly, but not destroyed. Your people's strength and military precision will be redirected. There are threats in this galaxy that require warriors. Threats we're preparing all civilizations to face together. The Supreme Commander's scales shifted color as he processed this information. You're building an alliance, not through conquest or diplomacy, but through controlled evolution. Over centuries, the Admiral confirmed, each species contributing its unique strengths. The Aetherians' artistic insights lead to technological breakthroughs. The Silicon Collective's architecture revolutionizes space station design. Your military doctrine, she paused meaningfully, will prove invaluable against the challenges to come. Through the viewport, they watched as a new human ship emerged from dimensional space, larger than the others, its design somehow more advanced. Its presence seemed to signify the weight of this moment. This is your crossroads, Commander, Admiral Chen said softly. Your empire can fight against the current of history and be broken, or adapt and become part of something greater. The choice is yours, but know this. Humanity's protection of developing civilizations is not negotiable. We are the guardians, the watchers, the shepherds of 1,000 species, and we will not fail in that duty. The chamber fell silent as the weight of these words settled over all present. The age of hidden guardians was giving way to something new, an era where wisdom would guide strength, and where even the mighty Krethak would learn that true power lies in knowing when not to use it. The crystal gardens of Station Harmony bloomed with new creations in the cycles that followed. Aetherian artists, inspired by recent events, crafted works that captured the moment when humanity's true nature was revealed. Crystalline sculptures depicted human ships emerging from dimensional space, their forms caught in an eternal dance of power and grace. Lyra stood in her favorite observation dome, now restored to its former beauty after the attack. Below her, a group of young Aetherians gathered around a newly installed interactive display, a gift from the human fleet before their departure. The holographic projection showed the known galaxy, but with layers of understanding that had been hidden before. The trading ships still come, she explained to the younglings, their crystalline features bright with curiosity. But now we see them differently. Each visit is a reminder that we are not alone in our journey among the stars. The display shifted, showing a human vessel currently in orbit, a simple merchant ship to casual observers, but the young ones now knew to look closer. They could see the subtle signs of advanced technology hidden beneath its humble exterior, the watching eyes that helped keep their civilization safe. First speaker Mirandel joined her at the viewport, his aged features reflecting the starlight. "The Council received another update from Admiral Chen's fleet," he said softly. "The Krathak Empire has begun its transformation. Their warrior academies are being repurposed as training grounds for defensive operations. And the other protected worlds?" Lyra asked, though she already knew the answer. The news had spread quickly through the diplomatic channels that had opened in the wake of recent events. "Flourishing," Mirandel replied, gesturing to a section of the display where several worlds glowed with promising light. "The Silicon Collective has begun sharing their architectural knowledge. The Cascade Nebula philosophers are exploring new forms of artistic expression with our people. Even the Krathak have contributed, helping strengthen defensive protocols across multiple sectors." Through the dome's transparent panels, they could see construction underway on the station's new wings. Human engineering teams worked alongside Aetherian architects, their combined expertise creating structures that were both beautiful and incredibly resilient. The crystal spires now house technologies far beyond their previous understanding, gifts from humanity to help them grow while maintaining their artistic nature. "One of the young ones asked me today," Lyra said, watching as a group of students practiced with a new crystalline interface, "why humans chose to hide their power for so long. Why pretend to be simple traders when they could have revealed themselves as guardians from the start?" Mirandel's features shifted in what Aetherians recognize as a smile. "And what did you tell them?" "I showed them this," Lyra replied, activating a personal display crystal. A recording played, footage from a human cultural database they had been given access to. It showed scenes from Earth's history, moments where advanced civilizations had encountered less developed ones. The results had often been devastating for the younger culture. "Humanity learned from their own past," she explained. "They discovered that true growth must come from within, guided but not overshadowed by those who came before. Their greatest achievement wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their wisdom in knowing when to stay hidden and when to reveal themselves." The station's central chamber began to chime softly, announcing the arrival of another trading vessel. But now, unlike before, the sound carried new meaning. Each visit was a reminder that they were part of something greater, a carefully cultivated garden of civilizations, each growing in their own way under the watchful eyes of their human guardians. "They still won't tell us everything," Mirandel noted, watching the trading ship dock with practiced ease. "There are still mysteries they keep to themselves." "As it should be," Lyra replied, her tone carrying the wisdom earned through recent events. "The greatest gift they gave us wasn't protection or technology. It was the chance to discover our own path while knowing we're not alone in the darkness between the stars." Above them, the endless cosmic dance continued, but now with new understanding. The galaxy was full of wonders, and humanity had ensured that each civilization would have the chance to discover them in their own time, in their own way, under the subtle guidance of guardians who had learned that the greatest power lies not in domination, but in nurturing the growth of others.